Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Elliotte Friedman joins us now from Hockey Night in Canada. Speaking of Tampa Bay, Florida, he's down there covering the Stanley Cup Final. From Hockey Night in Canada and the 32 Thoughts podcast, how are you, sir?
Guys, I'm sorry I'm late. I was on a call. I couldn't get off. It was a VIP. I couldn't get off the phone with them.
Whoa! Oh, wow. Okay, and it wasn't Rick.
No.
Well, Rick is only a VIP when he wears that red shirt. I love that red shirt.
Thank you.
So you're on a phone call. Is there something you want to share with us in the audience?
Come on, Elliotte. Come on.
Forget the Hockey Night in Canada, guys. Let's hear it.
No, there's nothing really that big. Just, shooting the breeze about, what's kind of going on out there, and we'll see. They always give you leads. You got to work on them and see if they go anywhere. Guys.
Yep. Well, yesterday, big news, of course, here in Vancouver. What are the Canucks getting in Andrei Kuzmenko, Elliotte?
I think he's a talented guy. He's definitely got offensive ability to him. He's a finisher. There's no question about that. Speed is not his game, but he's smart and he can score. And with a really good setup person like a Pettersson, for example, I think he can thrive. There were a lot of teams who liked this guy. The one thing you never know, Don, is just how someone's going to adjust in North America. I think that's what teams always say. You never know. Once a player gets to North America, how do they handle the game? How do they handle the difference in cultures, everything around? But in terms of pure hockey talent, there were a lot of teams who were happy to bet on Kuzmenko. And, Vancouver got him. And they were in it from the start. There were a couple other teams that told me they thought it was between Vancouver and Edmonton and everybody playing for second. And credit to the Canucks, they won it.
I'm not trying to make a comparison here, Elliotte. Other people are, but a lot of people are making the comparison to Artemi Panarin because similar situation, same team, undrafted free agent playing in the K, big numbers in the K. Do you remember what the talk was when Artemi Panarin came out of the K and what the expectations were?
Yes, I do, because I remember a few months before teams really started making the big runs to sign in Panarin, I had a couple of people reach out to me. It was about a year before, and they said, "You better be on this, because this guy can play, and this guy will be like one." I remember one guy, and I remember there was a free agent years ago out of Sweden, Fabian Brunstrom, and we all went crazy. We all went crazy about Brunstrom, and he scored 4 goals the first game, and we looked like geniuses. But then it turned out he simply wasn't that good. And I said, "Is this player better than Brunstrom? Is this another Brunstrom we're going down?" And he said to me, No. Like this is going to be a difference maker. This is a late bloomer who's going to be a difference maker. And I just remember the race for Panarin. People kept on telling me, be on top of it, because he's going to be a hell of a player. The Kuzmenko this year, so when Kuzmenko came on my radar, I asked guys, is this a Brunstrom or is this a Panarin? And guys said to me, he's well above a Brunstrom, but he's not a Panarin. They don't see him being a Panarin, but they do think he can score. There's no question about that.
Elliotte, here we are. We're a couple of weeks away from the NHL draft. Free agency's around the corner. What are you hearing on Besser, Miller? Any updates on those guys?
I think that there definitely are a lot of teams around you guys. I will say this, guys, the Besser thing I've left alone just because of what he's been through, so I haven't been poking around there as much. I will confess my information is not as solid on him as it has been in the past, because I wanted to give him and his family time. Miller, look, I still think it's a big contract that he's asking for. I think like the Canucks, like some other teams are worried about term for him. The team I've kind of wondered about, I think a lot of people are wondering about now that Washington has lost Backstrom and nobody seems to know what the timeline here is, what are they going to do? I've heard Kadri's name connected to the Capitals. I've heard Miller's name connected to the Capitals. But I think Washington's just starting to figure out, what are we going to do here? And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the kind of guy that's on their radar.
Good story last night on Ethan Bear. Elliotte, teams are allowed to talk to Carolina. He's an RFA right shot. I'd be shocked if the Vancouver Canucks and his agent don't talk, but we'll see. But talk about what happened there. Elliotte, he didn't play in the playoffs. This is a pretty significant move for the team to allow the agent to talk to teams.
Well, first of all, don't forget that Carolina has a bit of a history of doing this.
Yes.
When Dougie Hamilton was a UFA and Bear was a restricted free agent, but when Dougie Hamilton was a UFA before the opening day of free agency, they allowed him to talk to teams. And Dean Chenoweth, who was an assistant coach there, he didn't want to sign his deal with Carolina. He didn't like their offer, so they said you're allowed to talk to teams, and he eventually ended up in Toronto. So one of the things about their ownership there is they have a limit. They say this is what we think you're worth, but if you think you can go get a better deal somewhere else, you're allowed to explore it. Now in Bear's case, even though he's an RFA, he's still not technically an RFA until July 13th. So Carolina has control over the situation, but he's allowed to talk to teams. And if there's one thing we've learned about the Hurricanes, it's they're not afraid to let people do this.
Yeah.
Elliotte, we were talking in this segment about the Avalanche and the Lightning and the Stanley Cup Final. Game 3, the nastiest of the 3 games so far. If that trend continues, which team does it favor?
I think it favors Colorado a bit more. Like, Don, have you ever seen the Avalanche? Like, every guy is big and strong and ripped. Like, that's not to say that, like, the Lightning are a bunch of schlubs like me, but, the Avalanche, they just look like a bunch of cyborgs really out there. I think the one thing that I'm a little concerned about is just the overall health of the series. Now, every game from here on in is one off day. Game off day, game off day. Right. So it's a really tight series, and the injuries are piling up. Gojin got hurt last night. Kucherov, although I think he's going to be okay. For the Avalanche, it's Kadri, it's Burakovsky. I do think that Tampa's a mean team. Don't kid yourself. But I think Colorado just physically is so special. I think it favors them. I'm starting to get worried about the health of these teams, though.
Yeah. What does it say yesterday about Tampa Bay? They come off the 7-0 loss and win convincingly just after finding out that Braden Point wasn't going to be available again.
Well, it goes back to the old another Lou Lamoriello saying, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. It doesn't matter how many goals you win or lose by. It only counts as one as the column. So how can you recover? The point thing is really fascinating to me because there's a sense here, Don, that was not Point's decision. It was Tampa's decision. It was almost like, Braden, we love you, but you're just not giving us what we need. You can't give us what we need because you're physically not healthy. And they, to control Tampa a bit, or control Colorado a bit, they felt they just couldn't do it. So I think that's really fascinating. We all know the Lightning get better as the series goes on. The one thing I'm waiting for here is when does Nathan MacKinnon announce his presence on this series?
Absolutely. Relatively speaking, he's been quiet. Elliotte, thanks so much for doing this.
All right, guys. Sorry I was late.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
More than made up for it. Thanks, Elliotte. Appreciate it. As
Take
always.
care, guys.